Do you deal with stress? Do you ever get stressed out? I know I do. And today I want to talk a little bit about stress because it's just such a common problem for all of us. I'm going to give you 5 tips for getting calm. Check it out. Hi, I'm Brett, your favorite shrink, and welcome back to my 5 minds. This is where you're going to be learning a new psychology, a new neurology called systemology, where we learn about the 5 different parts of your brain. And today we're going to talk on stress. Now, stress is a normal phenomenon. I want to start off right away by telling you tip number 1, which is stress is normal. And I want to normalize it because when we get stressed, oftentimes what happens is we make it worse. And the way we make it worse is by getting stressed about being stressed. And that is not going to help anybody. And in fact, that is going to make things worse. So what we have to learn to do is we have to learn to see stress not as an enemy, but as a friend. Stress is actually here to help you. That's what stress does. It helps you get things done. When I was back in college, I remember the story. I had to do a journal article. I had to read some scientific journal article every week and then report on it in class. And I remember I was super interested in stress and anxiety because that's what my life was. Stressed out, anxious. And I remember reading some articles about how they would teach different relaxation techniques, or they would teach different things to help people to calm down from their stress. And what actually amazed me about those studies was that when people would calm down, they would lose productivity. They would get less things done. And that blew me away. I'm like, wait, I want to get rid of stress. But if I get rid of stress, I'm going to get rid of motivation. And I started to rethink stress. Started to not see stress as an enemy, but as a friend. A friend that I gonna limit my time with, or limit the amount of contact I have with. This friend is a good friend up until a certain point. Let me teach you, it's a weird principle. Well, it's not a weird principle. It's a principle that makes a lot of sense, but the name's a little bit weird. It is the Yerkes-Dodson theory of energy. And how it works is that these 2 scientists back in 1908 came up with this idea that as you apply energy to a system, that system actually works better up until a point when it doesn't. And then when you keep adding energy to the system, it starts shutting down. So it kind of looks like this. I'm going to use my hand as a scale. When I have 0 stress in my life, I get little done. I don't get much happening. But when I start adding some stress in my life, I start getting more done and more done until I reach a point where I'm at what's called peak performance. And I am at the maximum level of stress, and it's producing the maximum level of performance. Then, if I keep applying stress after that point, what's going to happen is my productivity is dropping on the backside. And so what it does is it creates a bell-shaped curve, low productivity, low productivity. And only time my productivity is the highest is when I'm at that point of peak performance, when I have that nice balance of just enough stress to get the job done. Oh, that's good. But not too much stress where I'm starting to fall apart. And that's going to be our keys in understanding how to deal with stress. Because what we want to do is we want to find a balance where there's not too much stress and I'm burning out or I'm stressed out, which is what most of us think about as stress, or where there's not enough stress and I'm procrastinating. I'm not motivated. Now, that's tip number one. We have to see stress as not an enemy, but an ally. Two, we have to learn to begin to balance stress. And the only way you're going to balance stress is to become conscious of stress. So here's my tip to you. Second tip, you need to start becoming aware of yourself. You need to become energy sensitive or develop an enertivity. An enertivity is the combination of the word energy with sensitivity. Enertivity is when you're starting to feel what your energy is doing. Because it's only from being aware of your energy that you're going to be able to balance your energy. Most people don't think, like I said before, don't think about their stress or anxiety until it's too late, until it's too high. But actually, your energy level is going on all of the time. And tip number two is if you could start to become aware of your energy, you're going to become much better at balancing your energy. I don't want you in this mode of the way most of the time we think of stress management is putting out fires. When you're stressed out, when you're anxious, when you're over the top, that's when you start thinking about stress management. That is the wrong time to think about stress management. That is not when I want you to go there. I want you to be thinking about your energy all the time, to be feeling it on this scale all the time. Because if you can start catching it when it starts going over the top, that's actually the best time to catch it, because it's much easier to dial it back there than it is to dial it back when you're in the burnout mode. So tip number two, start to become aware of your energy all the time. You may not call it stress. You may not call it anxiety when it's in these lower levels, but it's there, and you need to start becoming aware of it even in the early phases, because that's really going to help us in the next couple tips. All right, tip number three. Tip number three has to be one of my favorites, and it's one that you already know, so I'm not going to be, world shocker on this one. Breathing. Breath. Breath is so key to life. Breath helps you regulate your body, and breath helps you regulate energy. You can try it with me right now. Take your breath and breathe as if you were stressed out. Breathe as if you were freaking out. Fast, rapid breaths. As I'm doing it right now, I can feel my body start to stress out. I'm not stressed out about anything. I'm just sitting here talking to you. But I can feel myself stressing out and becoming anxious because I'm breathing in a way that my body does when it's stressed out. And so what I'm doing is I'm sending signals from my base brain, my body mind, to my thinking brain. And it's sending signals saying, whoa, there's something seriously wrong here. There's nothing wrong. I'm just breathing in a way that it recognizes and starts to produce anxiety, because that's the way you breathe when you're anxious. So my base brain is recognizing anxious breathing, and then my thinking brain is starting to think, oh my gosh, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong, but when there really isn't. Well, the actual reverse of that also works. If there is something wrong, and I start to breathe in a way that's the pattern of breath when I'm calm, when I'm relaxed, when I'm feeling good. That sends a new signal from my base brain to my thinking brain. It's okay. We're all right. That kind of breathing only happens when you're in a good place. And for most people, I'm going to tell you, when you're anxious, when you're stressed, you don't breathe. You stop breathing. You hold your breath, and that cuts off your oxygen. That sends your CO2 levels off the chart, which again sends new signals to your base brain, which are going to send panic signals to your thinking brain. So by breathing deep, I'm breathing and taking in oxygen. That oxygen is not only relaxing and calming my body, but it's also sending relaxing and calming signals to my brain. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 has to do with your thinking brain, the left neocortex. You've seen videos before where I've talked about the Thinkerator. And if you haven't, get on there, check out the Thinkerator. But the Thinkerator basically is how your brain evaluates everything. When you're stressing out, what's happening probably in that moment too is that you're overthinking. You're thinking, hey, this is super important. I need to really be on top of this. I need to be really in my A game. And that's good to get my energy up to that peak performance. But if I start thinking too much about it, and I find my thinking is actually shutting me into a non-productive place, then I need to get into my thinking brain and recalibrate. Yes, this is important, but it's not the end of the world. Yes, this is important, but we got it. We're good. We're okay. And there I need to, when I'm seeing myself starting to stress out, I need to dial my thinking back. One way to reduce this stress is change my physiology, base brain. Second way is to change my thinking brain, change my Thinkerator, and dial it back. This is a 2, this is a 3. This is not the end of the world. We're doing great. It's okay. I know this is important, but let's not make it too important. So I'm bringing my thinking back into line, which brings me back to a peak performance. Tip number 4. Tip number 4 has to do with your right neocortex. That's your creative brain. It's the focalizer. It's where you focus. When you're dealing with stress, make sure you're focusing on things that you can do and things that you can control. Because by focusing on things you can do and things you can control, it gives somewhere for your energy to move. As long as your energy is moving and you're able to do, you're going to do well. You're going to feel better. Once your energy becomes trapped and it can't go anywhere, then what happens is that you don't have this even balance between producing and generating energy. So now the production side is shut down and the energy side continues to climb. And then you get actually less and less and less done because your energy is building up, building up, building up, building up, building up without anywhere to go because you're not doing anything. And then you begin to flood. And that's when you go into that stress, high stress, panic mode. Tip number 5. Tip number 5 goes along with tip number 4. Tip number 4 was do. Focus on doing. Tip number 5, when you can't do, don't focus. Don't think about, don't look at, don't deal with things you can't deal with. When you're in a situation where there's really nothing you can do in this moment to correct that situation, to fix that situation or repair that situation, then you need to not focus there. Because again, like we saw in tip number 4, you're just going to build up too much pressure. Focus only on things you can do, tip 4, and not on things that you can't do anything about. Let the things that you can't do anything about, let them go. All right, there are 5 tips for you to deal with stress. Stress is your friend. Stress is actually going to help you. It's going to benefit you to get things done. Don't be afraid of it. But to use it, you have to sensitize to your stress, to the energy. You have to develop an inner sensitivity, a sensitivity to the energy. All right? So that's tip number 2. Number 3, breathe. Breathing patterns go along with mood patterns, and you can affect your base brain and your emotional mind as well by affecting your breathing patterns. Tip number 4, do, move, act. Focus on things that you can do, things that you can take control of. That'll keep your energy moving. Tip number 5 goes with tip number 4. Shut down thinking that doesn't have anything you can do right now. Without doing, you have to shut down thinking, because the two can't work independently of each other. Hope those tips were helpful for you. If you liked them, like them. I want to see you back for more of my 5 minds. And again, I'm Brett R. Williams, your favorite shrink. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.